Well, good afternoon, our dear viewer out there. This is Adom TV, and welcome to Current Affairs. Of course, we'll be looking at some of the issues making headlines over the past month or so. But then, at this time, we'll be looking at it from the way that it has been going ever since some of these things started. But I would just like to use this opportunity to introduce my panelists for this afternoon. First, on my right, I do have an Islamic radio TV presenter. And finally, not the least, I have here Augustina Osei, who is also a council member with the PVDA in Amsterdam, Southoost. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, let me start with you, Reverend Dr. Osizi Dube. Osizi Dube. Forgive me. We've actually come a long way with regards to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that has actually gained much attention worldwide, especially at this time that we speak. We do want people, especially talking of the black community in the Netherlands, to also have a feel of exactly what is going on. Would you briefly, in your own way, tell us what you think might be responsible for all this conflict? How it started, perhaps?
No, I think it's not what I think, actually. It's just a fact, is that Palestine was occupied by the Jews because they claim that the land has been given to them by God. So that the conflict started there, but since 1948 until 1967. So then the creation of 67 borders, that created a problem within the Middle East. So as a matter of fact, that land then has to belong to two groups, but the others feel that they've been robbed their land, and the others feel that the land has been given to them by God. So they both believe in God, but from a different perspective, because Allah and God are completely seen in a different view. Islam is another religion, and Christianity is another religion. But God, we can view God as one, but the perspective of who God is, that makes it different. So people can view God. Muslims don't believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. So that makes us to differ with them if we believe in the same God. Because our God, we believe that God gave us a Son to the remission of our sins or for our redemption. So the conflict that is based there is just not really normally based on religion. Your religion is used as an instrument to achieve whatsoever objective one wants to achieve. In South Africa, we come from that very same story of apartheid. So what you see in Palestine is completely what we have in South Africa, apartheid.
But then, for the benefit of some of us who unfortunately don't know, the history of the Palestinians or maybe the Israelis, who would you say the Palestinians really are?
This is what we call in the Bible the Philistine. So that was a nation which the story of Samson, when Samson picked up the gates of Gaza. So that's where the problem started also. So the other Philistine, which were very always fighting, having problems between other nations. So when you call the Palestine, that's a Philistine in the past.
Right. Let me quickly jump to you, Mufti Ababujey. What we can just see from what our pastor was just saying that it probably has some kind of biblical history behind it. What does the Quran also view this, or what was the stand of the Quran on this?
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. I think I'll quite agree with what my brother starts with, as it has a biblical, religious background that has been now turned upside down, and then we call it a political. This has a long way to go in the history of religion. But I would disagree with what the pastor say concerning that Muslims don't believe in Jesus, which maybe I wouldn't have more time to explain on that. But my point is, he said something very interesting, that the Jews claim that land was given to them by God. Every land is given to individual by God, right? But then how far can we get the truth that land has been given to you? And where were you then? You see, and you didn't even, it wasn't for you until 60 years ago. And what shows is the proof? But what I'm trying to say is that in the Quran, it tells us that we have given the dominion to mankind on this earth, to control this earth, to cater for other people. That means, if you are given a land, according to the rule of law by God, it means you shouldn't oppress people, being that you have the land or you own the land. What you have to do is you have to provide what you have to the others who don't have what you have.
No, it doesn't work like that, because you occupy. If you get into somebody's property, even though you can claim that God has given you that property, but you are still an occupier, because you are not the indigenous person there. So indigenous person there, if you shift, you'll always remain an occupier. And when you remain an occupier, you also have that tension within yourself that you come from somewhere else and occupy the land. For an example, in South Africa, the white people came in South Africa, and when they came and they settled there, and when they settled, they had to fight. So the fight was not only between them and the black people, but they had to fight the other settlers, which were the British settlers, which were there, and the Portuguese settlers. So always, when it comes to the land, biblically, we call it in Hebrew, eretz. It's something that is very, very religious. Land, it has to do with our subjectivity. So the Jews are struggling with the element that they are the occupier. So now when you occupy somebody's property and you claim it to be yours, that's where the conflict comes up.
Well, Dr. Osizi, you sound really religious with regards to this matter, but don't you think it would be in the best interest of both the Israelis and then the Palestinians to just allow that land, to go the way that it is, instead of trying to occupy the land at all costs?
No,
We're talking about the Gaza Strip here.
No, that can need. You can talk of the Gaza Strip, but we talk of the entire, what you call Israel. The entire Israel, it's an occupied land, which has been occupied by the Jews. But now when the war in 1948 to 1967, so it split the people. So the people ran away from one side, they went to Gaza. So then the others shifted, remained at West Bank, what we call Jerusalem today. So that's where actually the center of the whole thing is based on. So they don't agree actually whether the headquarters of Israel should be Jerusalem or the headquarters should be somewhere else. If Jerusalem become the headquarters, so that the other ones need to move out there. But the other ones, it is also part of their religious inheritance. So the underlying factor is that we in South Africa, we've reached what we call a compromise and a reconciliation. So they need to reconcile the Palestine to accept the Jews and the Jews to accept the Palestine. But they cannot do that by themselves. So they need a person who's very genuine and very, very honest. So I just want to support Mufti in the sense that those people, they occupy the land. There's no story. It's been occupied. So if the land has been occupied, so the talking and the discussion should be an element of acknowledgement that we are here. Like the white South Africans, we don't see them as Europeans. Yeah. We see them as South Africans. Even we call them Afrikaners, you understand? Mm-hmm. Because they have accepted And they came there, then they occupied the land, but they wanted to become part and parcel of the community. So we as black people, we have to accept it. So now the Palestine, the problem, they don't want to accept the other, and the other doesn't want to accept the other. So what you call a conflict, it's a crisis.
Let me come to you, Amaka. Well, the whole world have been following this news very keenly. Do you think, I mean, as a politician, is this the right time that the American president-elect, I'm talking about Barack Obama, to come out with any statement or something?
Well, thank you. Right now, how I see it going, because I've been hearing these two brothers talking about it from the religious side and everything. I'm very glad that Pastor Dube said that the land was indeed occupied. And if you go back in history, there were loads of lands that were occupied by other, even look at America. The Americans, they are not the indigenous people living there. We have the Indians, those are the indigenous people living there.
Yeah.
And the land was occupied by all kinds of Europeans, and they have taken over now and they are living. So it is possible. We have seen that people occupy other lands and they go there and they live together. South Africa is a nice example of that. As we can see, the Palestinians and the Jewish, as he said, what I was very happy about, if I look at it, I think they are using religion to fight, but it's not really, if you go back, it's not really a religious issue. It's more about which part of Israel belongs to you and which part belongs, and which one will be our headquarters, and that's what it's more about. Even if you look at the whole thing, you can see on telly, it's not all the whole Palestinians are supporting Hamas. Hamas is part of them. And all the fight and all the violence is coming from part of the Palestinians. So it's not the whole Palestinian, but if you look at the television and the media, they are putting the whole Palestinian on the black chair, like Palestinians are evil or bad, but it's just a part of it. It's the Hamas that is doing the evil things. So if I look at it from my view, if you say Barack Obama, what can he do? I think sometimes America right now has all the time has been supporting the Israel, the Jewish. So I don't think America is the right country, or even Barack Obama, he being American, is the right person to mediate between the Hamas and the Jewish and Hamas. I don't think they are the right.
Don't you think he would be able to at least play a part in resolving this issue? No, I don't really think so. Him being Barack Obama, maybe because he has been accepted by the world. That may be a little bit of a difference. But at the end, if we are looking at, because they have been short-term solutions, but as I said, it was a short-term thing. And when we want something for the long term, I think we need, as Pastor Dube, we need somebody who's neutral, somebody who has not come out earlier before, like I am on this side. And America has always been supporting Israel. Even if you go back, you see they have been giving Israel millions and millions of dollars to support them with this fight between them and the Palestinians. So I don't think somebody, no matter who, I am all the way pro Barack Obama, but I don't think somebody from American background should do this, because the Hamas will never and never accept it. When we are talking about mediation, when you go back in the rules of conflict or the rules of war that has been drawn by the United Nations, you need somebody that is neutral. That is one of the basic rules that are set in. So I don't think Barack Obama, even you heard it last week, was on the news, the Hamas spokesman was attacking Barack Obama already, him just being the president-elect, and he was attacked already by the Hamas spokesperson, by him not saying anything that he's then supporting Israel all before. So I think we need somebody else, and somebody from another country, or it doesn't matter who, somebody else who's neutral, that can talk to these people and wait for them to see each other, to accept each other, because they have to accept each other, being equals, because accepting they have conquered, Israel cannot get out. We cannot force Israel out of
that country right now. They have been there, even if that's been only for 60 years. They have been there. They are there now. So they have to accept each other, and we need somebody else.
But then, let me quickly come to you, Augustina. I don't know if you really are in the same position as Amaka is just saying right now. But then, talking about a neutral nation or a neutral person to be able to solve this very issue, what do you think we can do? I mean, with the exception of America, because in one way or the other, it has some kind of effect on the whole world. So what do you think would be the best solution?
Well, right now, based on the little knowledge that I have on this issue, it is difficult. I don't think you have like a solution right away. On the other hand, I think this conflict is a very complicated thing because I remember when President Bush started a war in Iraq and the whole resolution of the UN was passed, and everybody was trying to tell him not to go to the war, and he decided to go to the war on his own with the support of other countries, including the Netherlands. That undermined the authority of the UN, and that is a problem I see. So I don't also see, I mean, Amma is right that Barack Obama at this stage, or America, is not in a position to become the mediator, but I also don't think the UN is in a position to become the mediator either, because otherwise, if UN decides that they are telling the Israelites or the Hamas to do something, and if they decide not to do it like the way President Bush decided, there's no sanction. You can't do anything.
But then, supposing the UN is not ready to engage in any talks with these two nations, or the American, the United States of America is equally not ready for this, who's supposed to do this?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think both countries and also the UN and the states should really think about the consequences of this problem and also what has happened in history, because this conflict just didn't happen overnight. It has a history, and the history always was also supported mainly by the United States. Even when the Israelites were wrong at certain points, even yesterday, the House of Representatives passed a bill for the rights of Israel to protect itself. I agree that you should protect yourself, but it depends on how you decided to. And I've seen that Israel has been a country at this stage of being very stubborn, and because they know that they have the backbone of the Americans, so they just do whatever they want at what time they want, without considering because that's why the Hamas thing. There are also human beings living in Palestine. Children are being killed. You can blame Hamas, you can blame whoever, but I think the number one thing is to stay focused on what's important. And the important is human life. You know, we are always, especially politicians, are always worried about abortion and all this thing, but we have seen that guns kill more people than abortion does. You understand? So that is one thing we should really, all of us think about, both politicians, both religious organizations, whoever, UN, United States. We really need to think about how to solve this problem, but I think the solution remains with the Palestinian Israelites. We can all say something, do something, but if those people refuse to accept each other, it's like the Dutch would say gebed zonder einde. There won't be any end to the solution.
Reverend Osizi, let me come back to you once again. Why do you think America has been supporting Israel all this while?
Now, well, it's a common fact that a lot of Jews migrated to America, and a lot of Jews in America, they are quite very strong and very powerful in the business sector, and the sympathy, it's quite very easy to sympathize with them. But I think you need to acknowledge that a mediator between the two countries cannot be called until the two countries see themselves that they need actually to reconcile. But if just the mediator jumps in, so he has his own agenda, but these ones, they also have their own agenda. But the agenda should not be set actually by the third party. Mm-hmm. So the first and the second parties, they are the ones actually who need to dictate what we call terms of reference. I did law. In my law studies is that when people get into a certain settlement, they need to have terms of references. So they are the ones who need to set the terms of references rather than a third party to come with the terms of references in order to cease fire, in order to do this. So the only problem is the element of acceptance. So we as therapists, if a woman has been raped, she has been raped, and she has to accept the rapist and forgive the rapist. It's quite a cheap way to say forgive the rapist, you understand? We will always give the time to the person who has raped the other one to be aware that what you did actually is a violation. It's not only rape, but it's a violation of rights of the other person. You know, it's a violation of the privacy. That individual has a right to say no and to say yes. And secondly, you need to accept that you have violated that person's rights. Then you have to come to accept that you did wrong before you are forced by the court to say you are guilty. But even when you can go to court and say you are guilty, but you are still having the problem with it. So then the victim and the perpetrator, they need to be given space for them to decide. So the victim is the one actually who would say, well, I want to forgive. But the perpetrator need to accept the forgiveness. Or the perpetrator is the one that to say, well, I ask forgiveness, rather than to say, I forgive you.
But then the court is still there.
Let me show you where I'm going to. So what I'm trying to drive you to the point is that the Palestine need to accept that, hey, these people, they live with us. We need to accept, whether we like it or not, we need to accept them. But it is very difficult because there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of suffering, you understand? So now we, as outsiders, we need to support these people in order to get a kind of reparation, to heal, in order to accept the situation which we see as outsiders. Then the ones who are inside there, who are having power, who feel that they need to accept now what we call, in negotiations, we talk this language of give and take. There are other things that you gain and the other things you lose in negotiations. So whether America is there or America is not there, that is not the issue. The main issue is the two parties to sit and agree to differ, that we're different. We will never agree, even when we live to each other.
Agree to disagree.
Yes, they must agree that we are completely different, but there are issues of common interest that can bring us together. So what is the issue of common interest? Is the religion. That's very common. The Muslim and the Christians have something of common interest. That is Abraham. That is something of common interest. I would tell you that this is something that we've been discussing for the last 3 days and for the last 4 days. And in my heart, I see just South Africa in Palestine. That's apartheid. They live there, they're poor. What we did for us in South Africa, we had to throw stones in order for them to realize that we are powerless and we need help. So the outside world needs to realize that here there is a strong party and a weak party, and how can they be supported, not the other one to lose and the other one to gain, but both of them to feel that, okay, we can live together and accept each other with our differences.
Mufti, Ababujey, do you think that we have been unable to live as one people due to our religious backgrounds? We're talking about Islamic and then the Christian religion.
Yes, I think ever since the beginning of this world, that has been the kind of a bone of contention between race. And human beings has to think, especially when you are religious, I don't know other faiths. But in Islam lets us understood that all the ego that people have can be killed by what? By faith. You understand? Yeah. Because when egos start to arise, then you are doing something by yourself. Yeah. You don't consider anybody else. So what I'm trying to say here is that let's go to the history from my religious background. The history of mankind started by who? Adam. Peace be upon him. When Adam was created, some people say he was made, and some people say he was crafted. Okay, when Adam was created, according to the Quran, he was created by God, the Almighty, Allah. So he asked the angels, right, that I am going to make a creation and represent him on this earth. So what did they say? They said, why are you going to put him whilst we are here? So God says, I know what I'm going to do. He said, yeah, but he's coming there. He's going to fight and kill and blah, blah, blah. All this kind of discussion went on to cut everything short. Then one of the main issue is who? Now we call the devil. We call him Shaitan. When he was part of the group, he was asked that we have finished. Go and salute Adam. That is where the history starts. Do you know what the devil says? He said, I'm better than him that you created by your hand. I'm better than him. Then God asked him why. He said, you created me from the fire, and you created him from what? From the mud, from the dust. That is where the racism starts. So the fight here, I'm talking about here, the Palestine, between the Palestine and the Palestinians see the Jews as they are inferior. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And the Jews, they see the Palestinians to be also inferior. Yeah. They are subhuman. They are inhuman. I'm going to go to the reference of what the Jews think about themselves. For instance, the Jews call themselves Jews, and they call other non-Jews as Gentiles. Wow. Because they see them as inhuman. In some of the teachings of the Jews, even today, some teachers of the Talmud, the book of the Jew, what did they say? They say, whosoever disobeys the rabbis deserves death and will be punished by being boiled in hot excrement in hell. And also, it went on further. It says that anybody who is not a Jew, non-Jew, you are just like a dog. So a Jew sees himself to be what? He's a chosen person, even from the Bible.
But then I think this is
a Jew, any Jew.
This is history that I don't know how the Bible also goes about it. Do you agree with what Mufti is saying?
But this is the same in the Quran.
No, but what he's quoting, you need to know that you have the mosaic, you have the extreme and the Orthodox and the non-Orthodox Jews. So what he's quoting, it might be coming from the extreme, and which does not represent the entire view of
Christianity.
No, that's not Christianity of the Jews, because I think what he's saying is just quoting some other elements which come from different groups. But what we need to drive at, actually, what was his point? Because I still wanted to...
Yeah, but then he wasn't finished then.
What I'm trying to say is that, this kind of barbaric actions happen within mankind. I quite remember here in the Netherlands. Believe me, years back, when you call yourself they see that you are African. Even within the black society, if you tell them you are from Africa, they mention them. I don't want to say it because we are on the TV.
You should say it.
They are called you African man pampa. Yeah. Because that is the insult they give you. But today, thank God that they are saying that, okay, those they are insulting, okay, they are not like that. Before they hardly could even sit next to you. They said that you are stinking because that is the indoctrination in their mind.
But then we've come a long way at least. We're still in the 21st century.
Yeah.
But then the question is that why is it impossible for religious groups to come together as one people?
Yeah, but
it's impossible.
We live in Africa. Islam, the Muslims and the Christians, we live together.
We live together. If you go to Ghana, when I went to Ghana on holidays, for example, and I went to Kumasi, and I saw there was a mosque and there was a church, and afterwards, I think they finished together, and all of them were coming out, and the Christians and the Muslims were even talking, and I think they went on to there were restaurants in there, but they went on and ate together. So I use this example because I remember in my studies I do international relations, and these are the topics we talk about. And we had a study case, and I said to the professor that I think people, that's when the Muslim thing was a hot item here. Muslims were, the Moroccans were creating bad examples, some of the young ones, and everything. Every day you'd pick up the newspaper, they were bashing the Muslims. And I said that I think the Europeans can learn something from Africa. And I made a funny example of what I saw in Ghana. They should go to Ghana and see after church, you see the Christians and the Muslims go holding hand in hand, going out and eat. So if it's possible, that means civilization is a long time in Africa. If it's possible there.
How do you think they can translate this to the Middle East especially?
My conclusion was that the media was playing a big role in this. The media is part of this, because if, let's say, for example, over here, you go to West, a Moroccan will burn down a car. The next day will be big in the news. This Islamic boy, the Moroccan, has burned down the car. It got something to do with his background and he be a Muslim. Not knowing the boy was just out of hand. It was just a bad boy. It had nothing to do with him being Islam or something. He just burned down the car because he was bored or something. I don't know what. But everything a Muslim does is brought back to his roots of him being a Muslim, and most of the time it's not even from him being a Muslim. And that is what is being on the media, and is convincing people that being a Muslim is bad, or Muslims are violence. And what he's quoting from the Jewish, and that I know is from the extremist Jewish, you can quote the same from the Quran.
Okay. You
can open up the Quran, and where you see that you not being the Quran, what do you call you? They have a name for you if you're not
Muslim? Kafir? Kafir?
No, one of those things. Yeah, infidel. If you're not, if you don't believe in Allah, you are this, you are that, and you have to be killed if you don't believe. It's true. You can back me up that you can quote it from the Quran. It is in the Quran. So when we go back to how can the Jewish and the Palestinian reconcile, and it's true what you're saying, that they can we can only have a mediator if the two parties accept the mediator. That was what I meant when we are talking about mediator. The two parties have to accept. That's why I was talking about that American can never be a mediator, because the two parties will never accept it, that person. So if we say only the two parties can accept the mediator, and we go back to what you say, what do they have in common? Religion is what they have in common.
No, but we talk of issues of common. But let me come back. You need to be very careful about the subject of the Middle East. You have to be very, very careful. It is not how we talk about it here. In the Middle East, it's what we call, I'm a politician. I was a politician in South Africa, but I don't want to do anything with politicians. In politics, we have what we call propaganda war. You understand? So you can deal with what is happening there, but each and everyone who's there, there are elections that are coming in February here. You understand? So these elections, they cannot be disconnected to this conflict that is taking place. And Hamas has its own also agenda. Why they refuse to renew the ceasefire? They have their own interest. So there is also a very strong element of propaganda. The media today is showing the shame that Israel is doing to Middle East, to the Palestine. Then that is also, and then the Palestine, they have an upper hand politically. They have a very strong position now, and Hamas has a very strong position. So that's what we call a propaganda war. So, but I cannot really tell you actually, we in Rome, when we're discussing this thing on the basis of human rights, we surely disagree with the attack of other people. We surely disagree with the camp, how the other human beings have been treated, you know, how they live there is very much inhumane. But how both of them want to deal with their differences, that does not call her as a third party to dictate how they should go about it. It's a big problem. So you cannot really decide for them. So you don't need a mediator to solve it. They need to agree, actually, where they differ before a mediator comes.
No, I don't agree with you. Why? Yeah. When I say I don't agree with you, because I think sometimes when people are not talking, even you can have that in your common, and you are a reverend, you know that in your church, you know that two people are not talking. And sometimes it's pride or whatever. So it takes you as a pastor to mediate, to bring them together, to talk. And when I say mediate, is you have to bring the two parties together and sit down, because that's happened before after the Lebanon thing. It has happened to God that they were brought together, and we had a long time of peace, a long time of not fighting, of no war. Yeah, ceasefire. That has been a long time. So it can happen. It can't happen. Too bad was just a short-term thing. It can't happen if because right now the two parties are not fighting. The only way they are fighting is either throwing bombs at each other. So we need it may not be only one country, maybe more countries, so maybe not only a Jewish person, it may be some Jewish, maybe Egypt now is playing some kind of role. Maybe we need something like that to bring them together, sit down and like talk about it. What are your needs? What do you want? And bring all of them on one table and talk about it. So right now, if you say we have to leave them, right now, how I see it, I don't see any way that one of them will stand up and say, I am at fault, because if I look at the Jewish people now, the Israel, they are more, I always say, because they believe more in the Old Testament and not the New Testament. They believe more in the law of Moses, tick for tack. So because they were there, and then the Hamas started throwing fires at them, and then when Israel retaliates, they forget all about the war, the rule of war, and they don't mind if you killed one Israeli, they will make sure they kill 20. And that is the problem right now, what Augustina was saying, like that they are undermining the UN. So sometimes I always say at school, sometimes I don't know if this United Nations thing, if it's working or it's not working, because everybody who thinks that they are right can undermine it at any time they want, and there are no any sanction against it. So that's what the Jewish people are doing now, and that is when it comes to human rights. We can all see that Israel right now is not going by the human rights we have according to the UN. We all see that what is going on.
Yeah, but let's go back to the point of, mediation. You don't force people to mediate. They need to accept each other. That's what I'm trying to say. They need to accept. The Hamas need to accept Israel. And Hamas does not want to accept Israel. And Israel also wants to say, okay, I'm afraid of you because you're doing this. So it's an element of, before you negotiate, people need to agree that we differ. And they must accept each other with their differences before a third party can tell them what to do.
And I'm not talking about a third party telling them what to do. I think we can sit down and talk. If you're talking about the accepting, we can start mediating not by what is going on in the country. We can start the mediating by accepting each other, by sitting down with them and talking, and tell them, here, listen, the two of you, none of you are going out of this country. You are staying here. Sit down and think about your children being happy. Think about your children being happy. So maybe the mediation should start about going up and down for them to accept each other. We can start there.
I'm a South African. If we talk about Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, it's a conflict that the Zimbabweans decided we must solve it on our own. Mm-hmm. The Zimbabweans. Yes. Where is the United Nations today? Where is the international community today? They are not doing anything in Zimbabwe. No. If you want to talk of negotiations and all these things, talk about Zimbabwe. It doesn't work until the people themselves, they realize that actually we need to sit down here. If Mugabe realized that, whether I like Shangarai, whether I don't like him, I have to sit with him. But it must come from him. And Shangarai need to accept that whether I accept it or don't accept it, I need to sit down with him. Then they need a third party who can be able to reach actually the settlement, whatever they want. So if I want to tell you, my father is a Jew, an African Jew from Zimbabwe. You understand? And I believe in Christianity. I respect all the rights of everybody. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, in this discussion, we must never forget that there are a lot of issues at stake here. Yeah. There are elections that are coming here. There are political agendas here. You understand? Mm-hmm. But each and every one of them try to make sure that before the 19th and the 20th of January, everybody should have scored a point. That is about the inauguration of Obama. Before that, before the February election, everybody has created his own political points and game. Already. You understand? So that must be in mind, in our hearts. If we want to talk about negotiations, let's talk about Zimbabwe.
No, I don't think Zimbabwe is on the agenda today. But
it's been so interesting. Well, actually, our viewer, in case you've just joined us, this is Adom TV. We're just discussing some of the current issues, especially with the current conflict that is going on in the Middle East between the Israelis and then the Palestinians. We'll be back very soon. Well, welcome back, our dear listener. At this time, we're still talking about the current conflict which is going on in the Middle East between the Israelis and then the Palestinians. I have here with me Reverend Dr. Osizi Dube. He is a system therapist and also a pastor of A.M.E. Church here in Amsterdam. And I also have here with me Carr. She is a council member with the PVDA Amsterdam South Oost. I do have Mufti Yussif Ababujey. He's an Islamic radio TV presenter, and also Augustina Osei, who happens to be a council member of Amsterdam South East. My name is sampaul, and I'm the host for this program today. My final question to you, ladies and gentlemen. Iran was saying that Israel should be wiped from the
face of the earth.
I mean, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I think that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and I think any sensible person will never, ever say such a thing. You cannot wipe human beings out of the face of the earth because you don't like them, because you disagree with them, because you have different, religious interests or political interests. But what it is, we have been talking about this whole thing, and the 4 of us or 5 of us talking about this issue here doesn't end. You understand? Like I said before, it's a very complicated thing. But the moment both parties realize that they have a problem and acknowledge that they have a problem, then you can work on the solution. And at this point, I don't see the solution coming anytime soon. Not from Barack Obama, not from the UN, because my personal view at this stage, and it's based on what President Bush did concerning the war in Iraq, that I see United States as a big joke. You understand? So, so that's the thing. But I don't think that anybody should be wiped off the field. Not the Muslims, not the Jews, not the Christians. I think both of us, like I'm gonna say before, we should look at the examples of the African nations, how we live together with all kinds of religions, whether you believe in something or you don't. Just accept each other as human beings, and we all have the right to be here because we were created to be here, and we were created to have dominion over this world with all the animals and everything in it. So at the moment we acknowledge that we are brothers and sisters, and that we acknowledge our differences, then we can work on the solution.
Mufti Ababujey, your submission on this: should Israel be wiped out from the map?
No, wiping Israel is it's not an issue. I think Ahmadinejad is just in my way back school. They say Papatusin. He's just saying something from his mouth. But sometimes people might say something out of anger. Yeah. And I think I won't judge him right away. I'll judge him from the anger. He see how the whole issue is going about. But what I have in my mind is, we spoke about the historical background of this issue. When we compare, I'm talking from my religious background. When we look at the family of Abraham, alayhi salam, peace be upon him, we see that we have a different stories how it came. In some parts, there's kind of a hate whilst they are talking about Abraham, peace be upon him. But we Muslims, we don't talk about hate concerning that family issue. From his first wife, Sarah, to Hagar. We don't see any, because we see that is he was a prophet. And you can't put a finger against a prophet if really you have respect for such a prophet, right? And that issue has brought that kind of a negative.
But you do acknowledge that something went wrong somewhere.
Very concerning his second family, and that is where you can see that is where the conflict is coming from, because the Israelis and the Jews, they said, okay, Hagar is the descendant of the Arabs,
yes.
Which is not supposed to be nothing good
came out of
supposed to come out of a slave. Listen to this connotation. Because the moment you start to have, it's just like the Europeans, some of the Europeans, the wicked Europeans and Americans, they decide to find that Africa is of dark people. So let's jump over them and then slave them and bring them to Europe. That's what they did, because they look at the dark skin colors as inferior. As inferior. So hold on, I didn't finish. hold on.
Because you wiped out from the map.
No, because the wiping out, I'm saying he said it out of anger. Right. And I'm going to quote, because we are quoting from what the belief is. For instance, when you have children at home and you start to, feed them with filthy things about your neighbor. They see your neighbor as what?
An enemy.
As an enemy.
Right.
That's why we don't, you have to let the child, you have to bring up the child, at a universal, point. Let me go here because I like to quote something from the belief of what other faith has. In the New Daily News, February 26, 1994, page 5, it says, according from Rabbi Isaac Ginsberg, declared, quote, "We have to recognize that Jewish blood and the blood of a goy," I think maybe you can write it down, "a goy are not the same thing." The Jewish blood and the blood of a goy. And who is a goy?
Who is a goy?
A goy is anybody who is not from the descendant of a Jew.
Israel.
So you and I are goys. You and I are goys. So the Arabs in that case are also goys. So anybody who is not rightly from the mother and the father are not Jew, you are a goy. Continuing. They say you are not the same. In the New York Times, the same thing, June 6, 1989, page 5, it says by Rabbi Yaakov Perrin says, quote, 1 million Arabs. Now he didn't add the other races. He said 1 million Arabs are not worth a Jewish fingernail. So it means when an Arab man happened to cut a Jewish fingernail, he can wipe 1 million Arabs. I'm saying, and the Arabs have the same kind of a racist mentality. I'm being a Muslim. Sometimes I go to a mosque, an Arab man will see me. He said, after we finish praying, he said, "Are you a Muslim?" Because he didn't expect me, a dark skin color, to be a Muslim. He think that Islam belongs to him or his father. So if you don't have that knowledge to set him right by telling him, hello, Islam is not for your father or your mother. It's not a religion of your father or your mother. Then the person will be like, okay, he knows what he's talking about. It's the same thing about the Jew. The Jew believe. They believe that they are the chosen people on the earth. So they can do whatever they can at any point in time.
Right.
And that is a very great mistake that they think they are doing. Let me tell you, they are doing. Consider the death today. The Palestine are 814 or so, 850. And how many Jews? Maybe 16, 20. So they are trying to tell me that every one Jew, the death of one Jew is 1 million. So they have to fire. But I'm saying also this thing has something to do with politics because they want to affect the politics, the coming of Barack Obama. Because he's a black and he's been chosen and they couldn't understand. So now we're going to put him in a very tight corner to see. Let me tell you, 20th when Obama is swear in, they would like to see, because the Arabs would like to see the reaction of Obama, the first speech. And the Jew also, or the Israelis, would like to see his perspective concerning the conflict. Believe me, mark this on the wall. They're going to see. When he starts to talk about considering Israel or Hamas to be the cause of the conflict, then the Arabs will say, oh, there he comes. He supports the Jew. When he starts to talk about the supporting of a Jew or the Israel, then the Arabs will say, okay, you don't like us. So you will see that they are going to put the black man on the what? On the spot. Because why? Because he doesn't deserve to be the president of America.
Right. Thank you very much, Mufti Ababujey. Let me just come to you quickly, Amaka. What's your take on this? Should Israel be wiped out from the map?
No, I don't think Israel should be wiped out of the face of this earth. What I is this problem is very difficult. I don't see it being solved today, tomorrow. It will take a long time. But I do believe that one day it will be solved. When, I don't know if I will live to see it. Maybe not. What I'm happy of is that now it's not really working. The shaming and blaming, that is something that is happening now. Because first, when Israel used to do it, nobody will. Even the United Nations will not shame and blame, and other countries. Now all the countries, all Europeans, everybody are shaming and blaming Israel for what they are doing. So that is something new that is going on this earth right now. So that is a good thing, because we cannot support Israel for right now what Israel is doing. I'm not saying because, let's not say Hamas is wrong. Hamas is wrong because Israel was there, peaceful. If they did not start shooting rockets, I don't think Israel would have done what they are doing right now. So it's like you going to pick a fight with somebody who's 10 times stronger than you are, and thinking that you win. It's very stupid to do that. You know, because I will not go and pick a fight with Arnold Schwarzenegger, knowing he will beat me down. So that is what Hamas. I don't know really, and I think what Pastor Dube said. Everybody have their own agenda, hidden agenda. I don't really know what the agenda of Hamas is or was when they started that fight. And the agenda of Israel, because everybody, when you look at the news, everybody's talking about the agenda of Israel. Is Israel, are they now them going to Gaza? What do they really want? Do they want to wipe out Hamas? Do they want a regime change? Nobody really knows. Israel is denying everything. Everybody's saying that all they want is peace. But if we see with the force they are doing this peaceful thing they want, is very difficult to really think all they want is peace. But I still think that somebody or anybody should talk with Hamas. We should have somebody talking to them to sit down, to really recognize, to sit down and see that they need to live together. And somebody should talk to Israel to also recognize that they have to live together. And for them, before they can even, they have to. I really agree with you if they say they have to accept each other first. Because if I don't accept my father, I cannot live with him. So it's the same thing with these two people. They have to accept each other for them to come to a solution.
Dr. Osizi.
Yes. I think the Bible is quite very clear, thou shalt not kill. So that language is not a language we believe in, and that's not good when other people want to kill other people. In this conflict, what you need to remember is that Hamas is a legitimate government of Palestine. It's not just a government that comes today. It's a legitimate, voted by the people. So if it's not accepted by us outsiders, that's where we have a problem. Yeah. So the Palestine politics are really, really tricky. So you cannot really say it's like this and like this, because what Hamas is fighting for, they have been voted by the people.
And that's democracy.
Yeah.
So going by these, should Israel be wiped out of the map?
No, I said that's not our language as Christians.
He started by quoting.
The language.
No, we don't. I don't even talk that language of killing other people, because I really believe in the rights of other people, even when they've stolen from me, even when they've taken from me. I have the rights to respect them as human beings. So when people are angry, as Mufti has indicated, they can say whatever they say, but that doesn't mean that's what they mean. From a psychological point of view, you cannot take literally when a frustrated and an angry man says that I want to kill you, then you take him to the police and then they persecute that person. But it's just frustrated.
I think it's interesting what Pastor Dube just said about Hamas being elected in the Palestinian government.
It's not seen. Everyone sees Hamas.
Yeah, that's the problem, and that's the problem because especially the Western world in America is imposing democracy on almost everybody, you know. But when the Palestinians vote for Hamas to be in power, all of a sudden it's a problem, and that's the hypocrisy of the democracy that we are facing this day. So as well as the Europeans, as the Americans. You understand? Because if you're imposing democracy on people and the people choose who they want and what they want, I mean, you have to respect that. You cannot undermine democracy, and that's how I see this whole world and the whole democracy thing in the eyes of Americans and some Europeans as being hypocrites.
Yeah, you know,
because only democracy when it suits them. You understand?
There's a problem about the word democracy. That's a big problem.
That's the
thing. That may be our next.
If you look the word democracy, the people from Indonesia, they do democracy their own way.
Yes.
And if you look people from Africa, this imposed democracy in Africa of elections is from the West. But in Africa, we've sucked democracy from our mothers.
Yes.
So we know how to live together. We know what hierarchy means.
Yes.
There's a father in the house, there's a mother in the house, there's a brother in the house, and there's a neighbor. So that is democracy. We live in a community whereby people are elected. No one is being imposed.
Don't you define democracy as equal rights?
What?
I mean, the right to do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, but you cannot say democracy is sanctions. You know, this democracy that you talked about is a democracy of sanction. If you don't agree with us, then we sanction you.
Yes.
If you don't do with us, we sanction you. These people, they have their freedom, what we call free trade. They must be allowed to sell their wealth in their own terms, not to be forced to sell their oil in the terms of so-and-so. The people from Zimbabwe, it's a very, very rich country with minerals and everything. They need that country to produce for themselves. But, you know, because it's a very rich country, that's where the conflict is.
This is actually not a part of our topic today, but then I just still want to ask you this question. Do you side Mugabe's policy that he's currently actually going on with the Western countries?
You know, if you talk about what is happening in Zimbabwe, it is not Mugabe, it's sanctions, just like in Iraq.
But then we're talking about the outbreak of cholera
Mugabe,
and all the conflict.
The conflict, Mugabe didn't put cholera in the water.
It's because of the sanctions.
Mugabe didn't put cholera in the water. Cholera comes because of sanctions. You know, if we talk about free trade, that's human rights. People have the right to trade what they want to trade, and they have to decide with whom do I want to do business. But if you talk of this democracy that is imposed to the European, to the African countries, it's a dictatorship. Now, I talk as an academic. I don't talk just as a politician. I talk as a critical person, as an academic who will really say that the sanctions in Zimbabwe, that's what African people suffer from, not from Mugabe. It's the sanctions. In Iraq, we had the problem in Iraq with sanctions. Medicine couldn't go in there. Now, the Gaza problem, it's also the sanctions.
The same thing, yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Osizi. Dube.
Osizi.
Thank you. Osizi.
Thank you.
Dube. Thank you very much. And thank you, Miss Amakara. Thank you very much, Mufti Ababujey, and also Augustina Osei. Thank you for coming once again. Well,
what you need an African panel where they have to discuss like this. And, you know, the Ghanaian people, they come together, they eat, they dance. But you need, they must come together and debate really about actually their problems here in Europe and take these problems as an African problem. We as African, what will we do? What will we do to solve our own personal? You just got elections in Ghana now. Those are the kind of things that actually, what kind of democracy is it? What?
Well, thank you very much for being with us. We'll see you again, same time, on the same channel next week. Bye-bye.
But you'll cut off what I say.
Thank you for coming once again. Well,
what you need an African panel where they have to discuss like this. And, you know, the Ghanaian people, they come together, they eat, they dance. But you need, they must come together and debate really about actually their problems here in Europe and take these problems as an African problem. We